Adventures in Consciousness, An Introduction to Aspect Psychology by Janeroberts. And this is the preface, written by Janeroberts. I don't know how many hours I've spent in various trance states during the past 10 years. At least twice a week, I've turned the focus of my consciousness away from its usual orientation and spoken for a personality called Seth, who's clairvoyant, writes books, relates to people with great understanding, and displays different characteristics than mine. In 1972, a whole new development appeared in my life. I discovered many other levels of awareness, each distinct and bringing its own kind of perception and experience. Some provided me with excellent creative products as well. Yet nowhere in past or current theories could I find any acceptable explanations for my own experiences. They were relatively unique, intense, and extraordinary enough so that I was driven to find my own answers. This book is the story of some of those events and an introduction to what I call aspect psychology. I offer it as a framework through which previously denied psychic elements of life can be viewed as proper, beneficial, and natural conditions of our consciousness. Such a theory is sorely needed. My correspondence shows me that many people are in a quandary as they try to understand their own psychic experiences. Those curious enough to allow their consciousness unconventional freedom are often labeled emotionally disturbed by psychologists or considered possessed in the light of religious beliefs. For several years, I've also been involved with a group of people, my students, who embark with me upon adventures in consciousness. We give ourselves freedom to perceive the reality of the moment as it appears through the lens of other alternate states of consciousness. I began to develop the ideas for aspect psychology precisely because my experiences and those of my students and readers raise so many questions. So-called psychic events happen within the framework of normal life. They are not something apart from it. Only because we've been taught to isolate them from normal concerns do they often appear so unnatural, separate, and odd. Aspect psychology is an attempt to correlate our psychic abilities with our other emotional behavior, and particularly to enlarge our concepts of the nature of personality. Any psychology worthy of the name must be large enough to contain all of our psychologically vital, valid experiences, whether or not they fit into conventional ideas about the characteristics of consciousness. Aspect psychology, then, accepts as normal the existence of precognitive dreams, out-of-body experiences, revelatory information, alterations of consciousness, peak experiences, trance mediumship, and other psychological and psychic events possible in human behavior. I don't believe in good and bad spirits, demons, possession, or the power of evil as they're generally described in Christian thought, spiritualism, Gnosticism, or any other ism for that matter. I'm also appalled that some psychic investigators without a qualm speak of mischievous spirits who impersonate the godly dead, move the Ouija board pointer, wield the pen for automatic writers, or just wait to waylay the unsuspecting living in whatever way they can. As yet, conventional psychology has found no acceptable explanations for such personalities as Seth, trance personalities in general, automatic speech or writing, or other related events. Aspect psychology at least presents a framework in which these can be viewed as valid psychological experiences, themselves neither good nor bad, but expressions of the personality as it struggles to come to grips with its spiritual and creative nature, with its spiritual and creature nature. Aspect psychology begins with the idea that man's consciousness is mobile, focused in the body but not dependent upon it except for three-dimensional life. I do not consider this an assumption, but as a fact of my experience, and therefore as a human characteristic. The theory is based firmly in the importance of our creaturehood and spirituality alike. It examines the basic components of personality and sees them as aspects of a greater, largely unknown self, which is the source of our physical being. As Freud thought that slips of the tongue gave evidence of the unconscious areas of the personality, I see the various aspects of our personality as pointing towards still undiscovered abilities, and our psychic and creative experiences as hints of a hidden multidimensional self. Aspects, the second half of this book, is an intuitive construct. Much of it came to me in altered states of consciousness. It wrote itself as it went along. I also consider it scientific in the truest sense of the word, in that I use the best investigative tool to examine consciousness itself. I utilize different levels of awareness to examine the nature of the psyche and its reality. The goal is set deliberately at a conscious state, and from that state, I program myself to journey to other portions of the personality and view reality from their viewpoint and with their own kinds of perception. To this end, I've also examined my own trance material and, from my side of consciousness, scrutinized Seth's reality as it appears in my experience and in his behavior and writings. To date, Seth has produced 2 books: Seth Speaks, The Eternal Validity of the Soul, and The Nature of Personal Reality, a Seth book. Recently, he began his 3rd book, The Unknown Reality. This Seth level has expanded into 2 other states that I call Seth 2 and 3, though I've reached the Seth 3 stage only twice. The Samari development happened in 1972, further enlarging the scope of perception available. This involves several distinct alterations of consciousness, which will be described in this book. All of these experiences gave me the impetus to develop a theory large enough to contain them, and also, fortunately, provided me with the material to do so. Our class group experiences also brought me additional unofficial events. Things happened that couldn't happen, according to official or conventional ideas about reality, such reincarnational encounters, the sighting of apparitions, and other events led me to examine the nature of perception and events in a way that I would not have believed possible a few years ago. An intuitive inside look at the personality may be far less distorted and closer to reality than objective theories that deal with case histories or view the psychological condition of others from a detached standpoint. The latter originate with the physically and culturally attuned aspects of the mind and not with the fountainhead of the psyche beneath. What do the inner levels of the self feel about their own reality? How do they view our exteriorized life? Since our private experiences come from these inner aspects of the self, at least they deserve a hearing. Our intellectually based theories stress the parts of the personality with which we are most familiar and ignore the deeper experience which they cannot reach alone. If you are working to obtain scientific data in objective terms, then you utilize the part of the consciousness that analyzes exterior phenomena. If you're looking for answers about the inner nature of personality, then you must use those parts of it most familiar with the psyche. While my own experiences are relatively unusual, they are different only in quality and degree. Each man and woman sometimes senses a greater self within, is struck by inspiration, or startled by a dream or a premonition that comes true. Many others have startling psychic experiences that seem inexplicable. Often such events provide the most significant, richest memories of a lifetime, yet they remain like dangling participles, evidence of poor taste at best, unofficial events that can't be denied or explained. I hope that this book will not only present an introduction to aspect psychology, but also show it at work, for the writing method included alterations of consciousness, and the theory came to me one night in a proverbial flash of inspiration. The theory is workable. It helps us understand ourselves better, or at least provides a framework in which we can accept and view all of our experiences, not just those considered respectable by orthodox schools of knowledge. I am not presenting aspects as truth, but as an excellent method that will let us discover the truths of ourselves, as a diagram of the psyche that each person can use, as an alternate map of reality for anyone to follow. For we are all on a pilgrimage. I hope that aspects will give us a clearer idea of the rules of the game and the nature of the search. Janeroberts, Elmira, New York. And that was the preface. So I hope you enjoyed that, and join me later for Chapter 1, which is called The Class That Went Too Far, Seth and Alterations of Consciousness. Well, that sounds interesting. So like and subscribe. Until soon.